what I'm going to discuss today is the introduction of soil fertility and management. So for the historical background of soil fertility, so how does the soil fertility started? So as we all know, first is yung nomads na tinatawag natin. They don't have settlement. They exchange places kasi kapag ka naubusan na ng resources dun sa isang lugar, so they need to go out para maghanap uli ng mga resources. So due to dun sa start ng cultivation of plants, once na natuto silang magtanim, so dun na nagsimula yung settlement ng mga nomads. Kasi, di ba, once na nagtanim ka, seasonally, so may ma-harvest ka na. Tama? So cultivation of plants for food allowed humans to convert from nomadic hunting and gathering lifestyle to a more settled existence. So next part of the history is the Mesopotamia, which is now called Iran or Iraq rather. So it is found in between Tigris and Euphrates River, shows evidence of very early civilization. So why does that place shows early civilization? So it is because of the presence of the fertile of the river. So yung river na yon, so yung mismong andun yung fertile crescent wherein may supply ng water, kaya yung soil doon ay naging productive, which is naging suitable siya para sa cultivation ng crops. So yung mga evidence ng first cultivation ay matatagpuan dito sa area na to. So writings dating to 2500 BC mention fertility of the land. Fertility was due to annual flooding of the land and a system of canals were built for irrigation of crops. So as we all know, water is very essential in crop production. So these are some of the paintings that shows the fruit of cultivation. Then other than cultivation of crops, part of the history on the uplands is what we call the shifting agriculture. Shifting agriculture means that you will go to a certain area, then you will harvest all of the resources there. Then after that, you will burn the remainings or the residues. So yun kasi yung ano dun yung parang secondary succession sa environment. Diba once na parang nagkakaroon ng forest fire, once na naabo lahat dun, yung mga minerals syempre sa ashes, it will be going down to the soil, going back down to the soil, then it will provide nutrients to those seeds na syempre naiwan sa soil, mga dormant seeds dyan. So they will grow. Then after that, pwede na uling after nung growing na yon, so pwede uli silang bumalik sa certain area na yon. So that's what we call the shifting agriculture. An example of that is slash and burn. So yung timber na hina-harvest natin, coming from the trees. So after that, they will burn. But nowadays, it is not done, I think, because of the climate change. Because as we all know, diba, yung fire, it releases carbon dioxide to the atmosphere that causes the depletion of our ozone layer. So that's why hindi na to ginagawa ngayon, I think. Then also part of the history is the golden age of bricks. So in this history, there are lots of discovery happened. So first is manure increased productivity and prolonged land use. So they have known that the manure of animals can increase the productivity of the soil. Then second one is the green manure crops, especially legumes, enrich the soil. So as we all know, the legume crops such as mung bean and others or have the capacity to convert atmospheric nitrogen into usable form sa soil natin. So those are example of green manure crops. Then a marlstone. So these are calcium-rich stone that can increase the productivity. So Until now, we are using, of course, a liming materials to para ma-manage natin yung acidic soil, di ba? Because as we all know, liming materials can increase the pH of the soil. Then wood ashes were beneficial. So ito, yung wood ashes na to, di ba? We are nagpo-focus na tayo dito. Some of the researchers or soil scientists are very parang talagang nakatutok sila sa use nung tinatawag nating biochar, which is also a nag-undergo ng pyrolysis ng mga materials, then yung wood ashes nun ay ina-apply sa soil. Okay, then also the saltpeter, which is the potassium nitrate, so it will really add potassium as well as nitrogen in the soil, which are both essential nutrient elements. Although saltpeter or yung tinatawag nating salitre is very common sa meat processing, di ba, sa preservatives. Then saline soil could be detected by taste test. So because of the high salt content of the soil, the saline soils, it can be determined using taste. So one of the people behind those history is Xenophon, which is a Greek historian, first recorded the merits of green manure crops. So green manure crops, these are again the crops that are able to contribute to the fertility status of the soil. So ito yung crops na itinanim natin, pero hindi natin aanihin for harvest purpose. Hindi natin aanihin para sa kanilang mga fruits. Yun ay tinatanim natin para ipapatabain pa yung lupa. So yung iba nagtatanim ng mung bean, di ba? Then after bago ma-reach yung pagka-vegetative stage na, so bago ma-reach yung pamumunga, so kinukultivate na nila, isinasama nila sa land. So to contribute for the fertility of the soil. Iba yung green manure crops sa tinatawag nating cover crops. Yung cover crops naman tinatanim natin para sa conservation practices. Okay? So he wrote, but then whatever weeds are upon the ground, being turned into the earth, enrich the soil as much as that. So the use of green manure crops can be also a substitute for manure. Meaning incorporating weeds into soils is as good as applying dung. Another one is Cato. So Cato wrote a practical handbook and recommended intensive cultivation. So intensive cultivation really one of the, I think for now, causes of soil degradation. So intensive cultivation means that you will using your land in its maximum. Sabihin kung ano yung pwede mong itanim, pwede mong gawin dun sa crops, talagang high mo yung income mo. Okay? Without knowing na yung soil mo ay nade-degrade na. Also, crop rotations. So, one of the conservation practices then ay crop rotations. Ibig sabihin, you will plant crop in this season, then next season, ay iba yung itatanim mong crop. Kasi meron dito, like dito sa amin here in Nueva Ecija, ay nagtatanim kami dito ng rice, both dry and wet season. So walang crop rotation na nangyayari. So ang pwedeng mangyari dun sa mga soil sa mga harvest is mag-decline na yung fertility. Mag-decline na yung harvest kasi nagde-decline na yung fertility ng soil, walang conservation practices na ginagawa. And also the use of legumes for livestock farming. He was first to classify land based on specific crops. Then one of his greater contribution is that Cato offering to the senatorial class a handbook, De Agricultura, on how to make money in agriculture. So really, agriculture, of course, here in the Philippines, we consider that the backbone of Philippine economy is agriculture. 'Di ba? So, yon isang malaking contribution yon ni Cato, yung kanyang book na ginawa about how agriculture can be used in making money. Then we have Columella. So he emphasized the usefulness of turnips. So turnips for soil improvements. So itong turnips na to ay commonly found we commonly found it on uplands like Cordillera regions. Once nung nag-take ako ng board exam, actually doon ko lang natikman tong yung nasa picture na to, yung turnip. Sobrang nung inilaga ko siya para makain is sobrang color violet yung kanyang root. So, yon yung internet na yon, why sa tingin nyo, why it is used for soil improvement? Sa tingin nyo, what properties of soil does it improve? Anyone?
Nitrogen, rich.
Nitrogen. Other soil properties, I guess. So in planting turnips, what we improve is the soil structure of the yung structure ng soil. Okay? Why? Because 'di ba, once na yung soil mo ay compacted, ibig sabihin degraded yung soil mo or nag-deteriorate yung soil mo because of I think destructing cultivation. 'Di ba? Pag kinultivate natin yung soil, sinisira natin yung structure, then pag umulan, so yung mga pore spaces mas madaling mapasok ng mga soil constituents na nagko-cause nung nawawalan ng air doon sa soil natin. But in planting turnips, so makikita natin 'di ba nag-embulge na. So kaya niyang wasakin yung pagkaka-compact ng soil. Kaya yun yung isa sa gawain ng turnips. Okay, after na magtanim ka ng turnips, pwede kang magtanim ng other crops para hindi ma-restrict yung root growth ng crops mo. So he also advocated land drainage and the use of ashes. Marl, which is the live deposits. Clover, so clover is as well as alfalfa is leguminous crops to make the soil more productive. Okay?
Sir, yung bang kaninang naka-picture, hindi ba beets yan? Red beets? Yung turnips, di ba yung singkamas? So, same lang ba?
Opo. Turnips po kasi yun din yung parang ano siya, parehas lang din po ng behavior.
Okay po.
Tsaka pag nung sinerch ko po yung turnips kasi ganito yung lumalabas. Kaya yan po siguro na ilagay kong picture. Pero yung behavior po ng pagiging turnips, or ano po tawag dito ulit, ma'am?
Red beets po.
Yan beets po, ay parehas lang. Okay po?
Okay po, thank you.
Thank you po, ma'am, for that. Next is we have Jethro Tull and Francis Home, which claimed that nitre or the nitrate salts, water, air, earth, Epsom salt or magnesium sulfate, saltpeter or sodium and potassium nitrate, vitriolated tartar or potassium sulfate, and olive oil increase plant growth. So lots of soil amendments were discovered in this time. Almost all of the present knowledge about the mineral nutrition has been acquired relatively recently during the last 135 years or so. These developments happened in a slow and gradual manner. Of course, each of those constituents of soil is discovered slowly. Okay? Parang yan lang yung ating mga essential nutrient elements. Hindi siya na-discover as one na nalaman na agad na itong nutrients na to is essential siya sa plant growth. But isa-isa siyang na-discover or unti-unti silang na-discover. So, the early 19th century, two prominent scientists, which is Nicholas Theodore and a Swiss physicist and Jean-Baptiste, a French chemist and agriculturist, were first to report that plants need mineral nutrients for growth and development. J.B. Bossington was the first to start field plant experiment on his farm. So here in this time na na-discover nila na yung talagang nutrient elements ay essential para sa crops. Na talagang merong role sila dun sa crop production. Okay? So they started lots of experiments about this. Then one of the most known soil or in soil science is Justus von Liebig. So he proposes the law of minimum as well. So he also established certain basic principles of sound soil management. A crop soil is restored to fertility only by adding to it all minerals and removed by the plants. So we cannot produce on the soil continuously without giving back or adding fertility to the soil or giving back the fertility of the soil. So he is the one who discovered that. Then he established the theory of law of minimum in relation to plant nutrition. So we will be having a separate discussion about the law of minimum. So it means that a certain crop a certain nutrient can hinder the growth of the crops. So merong role yung isang nutrient doon na kapag wala siya, mami-minimize yung harvest mo. Okay? That's the law of minimum. Or kung kulang yung nutrient na yon, bababa yung or hindi niya ma-achieve yung growth or production pace ng crops mo. So the law states that the productivity of a crop is decided by the most limiting factor. He is regarded as the father of agricultural chemistry. And another is John B. Lawes of the Rothamsted Experiment Station in England was first to make the use of superphosphate on his farm in 1840. So yung superphosphate ngayon, 'di ba, sobrang isa siya sa pinaka nabibiling inorganic fertilizer para sa crops natin. Both them, Joseph H. Gilbert, applied the principles of Liebig and stated that addition of mineral fertilizers to crop soils would keep the soil fertile. They further elaborated the chemistry of plant nutrition. Then we have Greece in 1844. So he discovered that the chlorosis, so one of the symptoms of nutrient, ano ba yun? Yung kulang sa nutrient depleted soil, so chlorosis or the yellowing of the leaves of the crops. So chlorosis of some plants can be corrected by spraying of iron salt and demonstrated its essential nature in plant nutrition. So, ayan, why does the iron affect the pigmentation of the crops, showing na nag-yellow na yung plant natin? So, we will be discussing that when we go to the roles of essential nutrient elements. So, iron also responsible for that, syempre, as well as the nitrogen. Okay? By 1860, a German botanist, Julius von Sachs and others established the essentiality of 10 nutrient elements. So dito na nag-start na ma-establish yung ating mga essential nutrient elements. So from this one, 10 nutrient elements pa lang consider. And we're using these 10 elements in the synthetic mineral nutrient solutions for the growth of plant. Discovery of other 5 nutrients was made after more than 60 to 70 years. So the addition of 5 nutrients, of 5 essential nutrients, was happened 60 to 70 years after that. While the last one in the group, chlorine, has established to be essential for plant growth only in 1954. Soil fertility. So before that, so let me just continue. So from that 16 essential nutrient elements, So the addition of another one was just I think nung ako ay nasa college, during my college days, so 17 pa lang yung essential nutrient elements, which yung addition ng nickel yung na-add. Then as of today, I think na-add do yung cobalt, which giving us the 18 essential nutrient elements. So we will be discussing more of that later on. So we have here different definitions of soil fertility. So soil fertility refers to the inherent capacity of a soil. So ibig sabihin, inherent capacity, ito na yung nasa lupa natin. Okay, to supply nutrients to plants in adequate amounts and in suitable proportions. Ibig sabihin, dapat yung nutrient content na nasa lupa natin is in adequate amounts or dapat sakto lang. Okay, and in suitable proportions. Dapat yung form nun is nasa suitable proportions. Di ba yung nitrogen natin that can be present in a nitrate, nitrite, ammonia, ammonium, and other forms. But there are certain forms lang na available or suitable para sa crops natin. And also in adequate amount, it means that the nutrients are well balanced. Kasi yung nutrients natin, they have their behavior na kapag ka mas madami yung isang nutrients ay hindi na ay mahirap nang i-absorb ng isang crops. So there are some instances na ganun. Because a soil is fertile does not necessarily mean that it will produce high yielding crops. So a fertile soil does not mean that it is a productive soil. When we say productive soil, it is a soil that can produce a harvest. Okay? Yung soil fertility natin is limited to just providing us the needs of the crops na inherent dun sa soil natin. Okay? Other factors such as temperature or pools, soil structure might result in limited yields. Good soil fertility is but one of the components essential to high productivity. So, other than soil fertility, kapag tama yung iyong management practices and other inputs, ay magkakaroon na tayo ng productive na lupa. Another, that's the definition from the USDA, from Soil Conservation Service. So here is another definition from Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. So soil fertility is the capacity to receive, store, and transmit energy to support plant growth. So it is the capacity. So first is to receive. Dapat yung soil natin has what we call the cation exchange capacity. I think that was discussed on the basic soil science. So yung cation exchange capacity is the ability of the soil to hold nutrients. Okay, so the CEC of the soil must be high enough to receive those nutrients and also store those nutrients. Dapat yung holding, not just the receiving, but the holding capacity of the soil is high. Okay, that can store na hindi katulad ng like yung sandy soil, di ba? Once na nag-apply ka doon ng nutrients, pag nagdilig ka, so madi-drain out lang yung nutrients, hindi mahahawakan ng lupa. So that's not a fertile soil. Then also transmit energy to support plant growth. It is the component of overall soil productivity that deals with its available nutrient status and its ability to provide nutrients out of its own reserves and through external application for crop production. So other external applications is associated with what we call soil productivity. Then another soil fertility definition. So there are three main components of soil fertility. So first is the physical, chemical, and then the biological. So yung tatlong components na yan ay dapat masatisfy mo bago ka magkaroon ng fertile na soil. Okay? So di ba meron tayong mga, di ba sa soil properties, we have soil physical properties, soil chemical properties, and soil biological properties. So all those physical properties ay meron tayong mga tinatawag na desirable para sa crops at meron din naman tayong mga meron din namang hindi desirable sa crops natin. diba? So the level of soil fertility results from the inherent characteristic of the soil and the interactions that occur between these three components. So these three components have their own interactions. So those interactions must be in favor to the fertility status of the soil. Most characteristics that contribute to the fertility of the soil, such as soil pH. So soil pH is very important. I think it is the most important soil chemical properties because it really dictates the availability of nutrients. Pag yung soil pH mo is mababa, so you will not be having a soil rich in calcium or basic elements. Pag yung soil mo naman ay acidic, ay hindi ka magkakaroon ng mga rich ng mga elements doon na or limited yung mga elements doon na sa acidic mapapupunta nakukuha, which is yung iron, aluminum, and other acidic elements. So our pH is very important. It must be in a range where most of the nutrients is available. And the susceptibility of the soil to compaction are dependent on the constituents of the original parent rock. So yung ating pagdating naman sa soil physical properties, di ba? So dapat in favor din siya sa crops, hindi siya compacted. Okay? Like yung soil structure natin, soil density, they are responsible for the compaction of the soil. So pagka yung soil density natin ay mataas, ibig sabihin compacted yung soil natin. Kasi siksik yung lupa natin, walang mga pore spaces doon for exchange of water and air. So, not just syempre yung ating soil chemical properties, yung soil physical properties, as well as yung ating soil biological properties. Syempre dapat yung mga organism na present dun sa ating crops is they are the one who is converting nutrients para maging available sa crops. Hindi sila yung nutrients na ginagawang toxins, yung nagre-release ng toxins na nakaka-inhibit sa growth ng or nakaka-hinder dun sa growth ng crops. So, dapat yung tatlong yon is always in favor to crops before we consider this as a fertile soil. So subsequent events, including the growth of plants and addition of fertilizer, modify the soil characteristics and alter its fertility. So a more shorter definition, which is more easily understood. So soil fertility is a quality that enables the soil to provide the proper compounds in the proper amounts and in the proper proportion for the proper growth of a specified kind of plants when all factors are favorable for growth. Then, soil productivity is the capability of the soil to produce a specified plant under a specified system of management. So, as we consider soil fertility, so syempre, before maging productive ang soil natin, it must contain a proper amounts of nutrients. So dapat fertile yung soil natin. So we consider a productive soil always fertile soil. But a fertile soil doesn't mean it is a productive soil. Okay? Because we can apply some management practices para makapag-produce tayo sa soil natin. The term fertility, so some terminologies. So the term fertility refers to the inherent capacity of the soil to supply nutrients to plants in adequate amounts and in suitable proportion. So ibig sabihin, fertility means it explains the nutrient contents of the soil. Wherein the term nutrition refers to the interrelated steps by which a living organism assimilates food and uses it for growth and replacement of tissue. So yung nutrient, it tackles about how each essential nutrient elements is used by the crops. Okay? Yun ba ay for flowering, for producing seeds or fruits, or vegetative growth. So yun yung nutrition natin. So these are the requisites of soil fertility. Sabi ko nga kanina, we have three main components before we can say that the soil is fertile. So first is favorable physical properties. So favorable physical properties, it means that it must have a good aeration and drainage. So good aeration and drainage means yung soil natin freely yung hangin doon nakakapasok because also from the topic soil aeration, di ba? Oxygen is also one of the important element for respiration of microorganisms present in the soil and also in of plant roots, 'di ba? So dapat yung pagpasok or pag-exchange ng hangin sa ating soil is okay, 'di ba? Dapat favorable siya. So good aeration and also drainage. Dapat hindi na yung tubig pag nag-apply tayong tubig doon, so hindi siya doon na i-stack. Okay? Dapat na-drain out din yung tubig na yun. Ay, di ba pagka once na yung lupa mo hindi na tutuyuan, so that can also cause hindi siya maganda sa lupa natin. Unless or otherwise, yun yung requirement ng crops. Like yung ano natin, yung lowland rice natin. Di ba pag nagtatanim tayo, kailangan talagang hindi na drain yung ano natin, yung field. But kailangan may time din na sa lowland rice ay na natutuyuan tayo kasi yung zinc na nutrient hindi siya nagiging available kapag submerged yung soil natin, kapag anaerobic yung soil natin. Yung zinc kailangan ding matuyuan yung field natin. Then a proper moisture holding capacity. So it must be syempre favorable sa crops natin yung ating moisture holding capacity. Then, favorable chemical properties. So, optimal reaction or yung pH natin. So, yung pH natin, it must be in the optimum range. Ibig sabihin, just like for example, di ba yung pH natin is somehow the range wherein all of the nutrients or most of the nutrients is available is on the range of 5.5 to 7. So, dun sa range na yon, dun lahat ng nutrient elements or most of the nutrient elements ay available sa halaman. Okay? Kasi pag mas mababa na doon, mas mataas na doon, yung limitation nung ibang nutrients ay na para sa halaman ay malilimit or yung mga nutrient elements ay malilimit kapag lower on that range or higher on that range. Okay? Then high buffering capacity. So dapat yung soil natin ay may high buffering capacity or it has the resistance to sudden change ng pH. Dapat kapag nag-apply tayo ng fertilizer doon na pwedeng mag-cause ng acidity ng soil natin, nare-resist na yung pag-change na yon. Dapat ma-hold yung mga nutrients na yon. Okay? So CEC is also responsible for that property, yung ating buffering capacity. Then high nutrient holding capacity. So the nutrients must be held by the soil. Then absence of toxic materials, salinity, toxic organic, and inorganic compounds. Then favorable microbiological properties. So first is active functioning of beneficial microorganisms and also the suppressed activity of harmful organisms. Then abundant and well-balanced nutrient supply. So hindi lang abundant, okay? Hindi lang abundant, hindi lang dapat madami tayong nutrients sa crops, but it's also well balanced. Okay? So macronutrients and also the micronutrients. So they are both essential. Sabi dito, the soil nutrients can exert their beneficial effects on the growing plants more efficiently if the associated factors are favorable. So, all of these four requisites of soil fertility must be satisfied before we consider the soil is fertile. Kasi once na sinabi natin fertile yung soil natin, we can really, pwede na tayong makapag-produce or high chances na makapag-produce tayo. Kasi wala na tayong paparubahin sa lupa. So, importance of soil fertility conservation. So intensive use of fertilizer, intensive cropping with high yielding varieties have no doubt increased the food production and reduced the food shortage, it has it has also brought in numerous problems of soil fertility, soil and water pollution. So, dito yung time na tinatawag nating Green Revolution. So, iba sa Green Revolution, doon nagkaroon ng massive use of fertilizers para mag-produce ng napakadami. But due to that time na nagkaroon tayo ng intensive use of fertilizer or intensive cropping, ay doon talagang na-degrade yung soil. So, we must know the importance of soil fertility conservation para malaman natin na the soil must be maintained. Hindi lang dapat siyang abusuhin. Dapat maintain siya na once na plant ka ngayon, you can also plant all throughout. Dapat in long term magkapagtanim ka pa din or makapag-produce ka pa din sa field na iyon. So fast depletion of nutrient due to over-exploitation. A widespread deficiency of N, P, K, and S coupled with micronutrients deficiency, especially zinc and boron, has been noticed in many soils. So because of overexploitation or overuse of soil, yung mga karaniwang nutrients na kinakailangan ng halaman, syempre yung mga macronutrients iyon, talagang nag-deplete na yung status ng soil. Kaya sobra na din yung apply natin ng nutrient doon sa lupa natin. Lalo na yung mga high-yielding varieties natin, they are really requiring higher amount of fertilizer. Then further deforestation, shifting cultivation, burning of trees, bushes, grasses, and cow dung, soil erosion, soil degradation, nutrient losses, excessive fertilizer application, leaching losses, etc. have aggravated the depletion of soil fertility status. So we must all know the goods and the bads or the yung pros and cons nung mga processes na ginagawa natin sa soil natin para ma-maintain natin yung fertility status ng soil natin. Ito yung list ng some of the really contributing factors sa pag-deplete ng soil fertility natin. So why is it important for us to study soil fertility? So first is world population is increasing. So lalo na dito sa Philippines, we really have bloated population increase. Talagang significant yung pagtaas ng population. So it means tumataas yung population, there are lots of people needs to eat. So we must increase also the production. Then arable land per capita keeps on decreasing. So aside from growing population, nagkakaroon naman ng depletion or pagkakulang dun sa arable land or yung mga lupang sinasaka natin. Because first, yung iba, syempre yung dumadaming tao needs ng settlement. So yung mga agricultural land nako-convert na into residential areas. So things like that. Then it is apparent that more food and fiber must be produced from the same or from fewer hectares or from lands now cultivated and considered marginal. So dapat yung same amount ng land mo ay dapat mas tumataas yung harvest mo kasi dumadami yung pangangailangan. Or kahit na lumiliit yung land area mo, dapat ma-maintain mo yung harvest mo. Okay? Addition of fertilizers required for plant growth, together with good cultural practices and high-level management, will permit the producers of food and fibers to meet demands. So the use of fertilizers is really known to sustain food and fiber production. Okay? So yung ibang mga conservationists natin, they are really into organic farming. As we all know, organic farming relies on organic amendments. Yung ating mga plant and plant residue or animal manure or other biological implements ay talagang pinopromote nila. Kasi alam nyo naman, yung fertilizer natin, in organic fertilizer, they are from areas na minimina nila kasi yun yung rich yung rich doon na nutrients. So iba-mine nila yun, then yun yung ginagamit for fertilizer production. So basic concepts of soil fertility. So plant growth and development depends on nutrients derived from the soil or air or supplemented through fertilizer. So as we apply nutrients to the soil, so that those nutrients will be used up by the plant. So there are 18 essential nutrient elements for plant nutrition, each with their own functions and in the plant levels of requirement and characteristics. So in nutrients, so we have the macronutrients. So these are the NPK and the CAMAG-S or calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So these are needed by the crops greater than 0.1%. Okay? So it means na pag kailangan ng halaman at ipinakakailangan ng halaman, it is also the one that we needed to supply more. And then the micronutrients, kahit nakakaunti lang yung kailangan ng halaman ng micronutrients, they are both essential. Then kaya kapag nawala ito, makaka-apekto pa rin ng malaki dun sa crops natin. So these are iron, manganese, zinc, boron, molybdenum, copper, nickel, cobalt, and chloride. So nutrient requirements generally increases with the growth of plants. Deficiencies or excess of nutrients can damage plants by slowing or inhibiting growth and reducing yield. So as you can see here, the nutrient uptake of crops to the maturity of I think this is corn. So makikita nyo talagang there are certain times na mas kailangan ng halaman yung nung nutrients. Kaya dapat alam natin yung fertility nung soil kasi 'di ba, yung fertilizer application natin, we are actually dividing the application of fertilizer 3 times. Minsan basal, then yung isa sa vegetative stage, then yung isa sa flowering, 'di ba? Kasi we all know that the basal application, kailangan niya 'yon para sa kanyang paglaki. 'Di ba? Then pag kailangan niya ng mag-vegetative stage, kailangan niya ng madami. Doon karaniwan kailangan ng sobrang daming or fertilizer, doon yung pinaka-higher amount. Yung application, yung sa vegetative stage natin. So doon tayo nag-apply uli. Kasi yung ibang nutrients, meron tayong mga non-mobile elements na kapag in-apply mo, after ng ilang araw or after na magkaroon ka ng irrigation doon, mawawala na yung nutrients na yun. So kaya natin hinahati yung pag-apply ng nutrients. Okay? So sa vegetative stage, nag-apply tayo kasi doon yung talagang kailangan ng halaman na magkaroon siya ng madaming dahon. Okay, yung dahon, syempre to support its physiological processes, di ba? Then sa cropping, sa fruiting stage or sa pamumunga na, so meron namang mga certain crops doon like yung potassium and calcium, 'di ba? Yun yung kailangan natin i-apply kapag kailangan na ng halaman na magkaroon ng bunga. So nakadepende din doon sa stage or sa pangangailangan ng halaman yung pag-apply natin. So that's why we need to study soil fertility. And we also have this different plant how in soil fertility, we were going to discuss how the plant nutrients or the nutrient elements behave. So merong mga crops na merong mga nutrient elements na doon una siyang nasusupply sa mga older leaves. Meron naman mga nutrient elements na nasusupply sa mga younger leaves. Kaya pag nagkulang yung nutrients na yon, nagsushow sila ng deficiency symptoms sa iba't ibang part ng halaman. Okay? So just like this one, so calcium deficiency, okay, dun sa buds or new leaves, wherein magnesium and phosphate are commonly found on older leaves, diba? So growth and factors affecting it. So growth is the progressive development of an organism, wherein development of a plant can be expressed by dry weight, length, height, or diameter. The overall growth may occur by one or all three types of change. First is the structural parts may increase in number, may increase in size, and also spaces between the parts may enlarge. So this is the sigmoid growth curve, which is commonly an expression of growth. Okay, first, the number one, so meron tayong parang preparation stage dito. Then number one, parang, number two, meron tayong parang exponential stage wherein talagang yung growth ay sobrang bilis. Then number three, meron tayong parang steady state na na maintain lang yung growth. Then number four is parang may pababa na. So there is a senescence happening. So yan yung growth expressions. So the S-shape or sigmoid growth curve is typical of the growth of individual organs, whole plant, and population of plants.
Growth expression is divided into four phases. Initial lag phase, during which internal changes occur that are preparatory to growth. Then the second one is the log phase, pace of ever-increasing rate of growth, which is also grand period of growth or vegetative to flowering. The next is the steady state, wherein the growth rate gradually diminishes. So the enter of the senescence, which is the fourth stage of growth expression, enters. So it is the point in which the organism reaches maturity and growth ceases.